Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with Savage Unfiltered Podcast, thelibertybeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. As Listen Note says, there are 168.9 million plus podcast episodes available out there for you to listen to. So I really appreciate you tuning into mine. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. I'm going to be a bit slower today and hopefully not struggling too much for my words because I've got a cold. So, yeah, I'm on the cold and flu meds. So, you know how that goes. It just, when you feel like this, it's slow trudging at times to get the brain to engage. At any rate, this is season 1, episode 25. It is year in review part 1, although I'm happy to report from last week, Bill is fine. Remember, I mentioned Bill Hatch was going to be on. Well, Bill Hatch will be on this week. It just turns out, and it happens at times. He missed it on his calendar. I've had that once or twice. I notice something in the morning, it's on my calendar, but then I get involved in other things. And if I forget to set the alarm, the time comes and passes. And look at the calendar later, oh, shoot, I missed that commitment. So I understand fully and happy to have Bill on this week, but year in review, I wanted to have a couple episodes, a part 1 and a part 2, to go over a couple of things from the year that we covered. I have some notes. I printed out the rough draft of thelibertybeacon.com, part 1 for year in review. And again, yes, corresponds with thelibertybeacon.com. So there will be a part 1 and a part 2 there. So the show wasn't going to go too long because otherwise the article would be too long that the show corresponds with. And one of the first things I wanted to mention was Norton v. Shelby that we discussed, and government overreach, usurpation of the Constitution, even overreach of congressional authority has given some of these agencies. Just because Congress creates an agency doesn't necessarily make it constitutional. It can overreach. And again, even if a agency is constitutional, some of them have overstepped their congressional authorization. And so we need Norton v. Shelby to come up again in these court cases, like you will hear Chevron versus the Natural Resources Defense Council. The Supreme Court ruled that the court should defer to a federal agency's interpretation of an ambiguous statute as long as the interpretation is reasonable. Well, what I consider reasonable may not be what someone else overly broadly considers reasonable, especially someone within an agency. Their broad definition of reasonable broadens their powers, their authority. Like we talked in the Norton v. Shelby episode of this show about the EPA expanding through treaties of the sea, way overreaching to now say they can regulate your property because there's a pond on it or there's a stream running through it. That may not be, if your property goes along a river that spans several states, that's where the interstate issue comes into play of an EPA or an FBI or federal agencies where there are cross-state issues. But if you've got a pond or a creek that doesn't affect another state's property, they have no authority. That is a state issue, but yet they are overreaching their duties or their authorizations to now say they can regulate personal properties based on something, a stretch like Treaty of the Seas. Another article and show I wanted to touch upon in this year in review, please go back into the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast archive, check it out, show called Odds and Ends, because that's a big item for the year in review, because talking about big pharma, obviously with the Wuhan hysteria and the Wuhan jabs and the massive profits, but it's not just that. We're creating a nation of Munchausen syndrome people and paranoia. I'm not for regulation. I've gone into that many, many times, but sometimes health and safety does need to be regulated. And I think Reagan, whom I loved as a president, made a mistake in deregulating pharmaceuticals to allow them to advertise directly to the public. If you recall, if you're a viewer of The Big Bang Theory, the later years, Penny became a pharmaceutical rep. Well, that's how it was meant to be done. The pharmaceuticals put money into research, develop new drugs. They bring those drugs to market. They then make doctors and hospitals and health providers aware that these new pharmaceuticals are available. But instead now, a lot of them are direct marketing to consumers. Hey, you've got this symptom, that symptom, another symptom, which could be one of any number of things. Ask your doctor about X of product, about treating these symptoms. So they're creating a paranoia and a fear and hey, there's a pill for everything to try to sell directly for their own benefit and profit. And of course, those ads aren't free. Those now have to be budgeted into the cost of those pills, driving up the cost of healthcare. Also in their border security, I discuss, and I go into the whole uniparty thing. It's not the uniparty. There are a lot of good Republicans, including myself, been fighting CINOs, rhinos, and fascocrats alike. What are you doing? And that raises an issue I forgot at the top of the show. I wanted to apologize for last Saturday's episode being a bit confrontational, a bit combative, because I'm about to do it again. A little tough love is necessary from time to time. You can't just sit and whine about the uniparty. What are you doing? What have you done? And I apologize, there's a break there. I'm doing a Marco Rubio moment, as you could see on @JLeonardDetroit YouTube and Rumble channel, because I am fighting a cold. So speaking of pharmaceuticals, yes, I'm on over-the-counter cold and flu meds. Now, I expect them to advertise over-the-counter meds. But I'm talking about actual prescription medications. But back to the uniparty, because I kind of segued back. What are you doing? Can't complain. The Republican Party is just Democrat light if you're not there fighting to make it something other than what you claim it to be. So yes, there is such a thing as the deep state. I think that term is more proper and appropriate. Rhinos, CINOs, fascocrats are all part of the deep state. Almost all Democrats are part of that deep state establishment PAC type organization about only their own power, their own control, growing government. And yes, CINOs and rhinos, part of the Republican Party, are part of that deep state, but not the entire Republican Party. And if you want better, if you expect better, in order to demand better, you must be a delegate to have a say within the party and do things within the party to make it a more right center or to the right of the political spectrum, as discussed in fascia federalism, original intent federalism versus modern fascia federalism, or my other article, A Republic, If You Can Keep It, about the deep state, those CINOs, rhinos, and fascocrats, indeed wanting to encapsulate power in unelected bureaucracies. So there is that I discussed that I wanted to touch on. I hope you'll go back if this is your first episode. A lot of the things that you've missed. Yes, part 1 and part 2 of BiDUMB Cloward and Piven style. Yes, this isn't coincidence. This isn't incompetence. This is design. Cloward and Piven spend to collapse the United States. This is by design. Bidenflation, Biden recession. We need him out of office. And I'm sorry, but Trump is one person. Again, it goes back to the uniparty thing. You must be involved. You must help other candidates. Trump is one person. He needs control of the House. We need a 60 majority members filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. That's not likely to happen in 2024, not likely to happen in 2026, but people, you must be involved with candidates to get candidates elected to strive for that, so that if we have a House, a 60-member majority in the Senate and the presidency, you get a lot more done, because if you eliminate the filibuster, you eliminate the opposition's abilities to block your agenda. So to really get things done, we need all hands on deck, everyone involved. We must work towards not just majority in the House and Senate, but a 60-member, preferably 62-member, because there's always going to be a rhino or a CINO in that wood pile willing to help the deep state fascocrats, CINOs or rhinos, members of the deep state. Thankfully, Mitt Romney, as I call him, Rinomney, is retiring, won't seek re-election, but there will be a Murkowski, a Collins that we always have to deal with. So we really need a 62, 63 member majority in the Senate to really be able to get through all the agenda items of cutting spending and cutting regulations and rolling back a lot of the bull that Democrats tend to get through because too many deep state rhinos involved with the deep state left when there's a Democrat president allowing these things to get through. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, I'm going to take another drink of water. My mouth is so dry from the over-the-counter cold and flu meds. I have to take a lot of water breaks in this episode. I apologize. But I wanted to soldier through. I don't want to miss an episode. I don't want to skip an episode on you. I only do once a week, so obviously I can grin and bear it through this. The last thing is the twisting and warping of language. I've discussed that on several occasions. There is a part 1 and a part 2 of that, so I'm not going to go in depth. But the left, I'm going to mention, twists, obviously, fake Christians twist the Bible to fit their worldview politics rather than the Bible in full context, hence the show, ChristiTutionalist Politics, and the book, the companion book, ChristiTutionalist Politics, the book, and part 2 coming next summer to help shape the elections. If you're a real Christian, that is what should shape your political worldview, not the other way around. But the left even twists children's stories. Robin Hood stole from the rich to give to the poor. Well, yeah, kind of, sort of, but that's not the whole story. What rich? A particular set of rich he stole from. He stole from the sheriff of Nottingham to give back to the peasants whom the sheriff was collecting monies in the form of taxation to give to the rich king. So it's really an anti-government taxation story, not just generally frolicking and stealing from the general rich to give to the general poor. No, there are specifics to that story that you need to teach your children. It's a big government, overreaching, largest government, too big for its britches story, as are a lot of morals to the children's stories that over time have become beaten down into something less than what it was intended to be. It's up to us to bring those morals and values and principles in those stories back to our children, because they're certainly not going to get these things at school, correct? They're getting what I call the new core R's: radicalism, raunch through perversion, and racism through CRT. So we need to teach our children the core values and principles and go to the school boards. Again, you being involved, the party can help you in some respects, but you being involved to be the mama bears and the papa bears at the school boards to demand this raunch, radicalism, perversion, racism, get out of there. They are the ones that ban books. The left, not the right. We are talking about age appropriateness. Colleen Hoover perversion has no place in grade school. It doesn't. Later, as they near adulthood in high school, if they choose, or when they become an adult at 18, that book's not banned. They can read it then, but it's the left that took To Kill a Mockingbird out of the schools, which was to teach and have discussions based on racism. You don't teach against racism by introducing actual direct racism. To Kill a Mockingbird was about anti-racism and equality Atticus Finch defending someone wrongly accused. But they took that out of the schools. They took Huck Finn out of the schools. So the left are the ones taking the valuable lesson classics like that out of the schools and replacing it with Ranch, which has no business being a grade in junior high. We need to get back to the core R's, right? The reading, the writing, the arithmetic, the history, science, as I joke in the book. There's no R in there. See what I did? Our kids are so dumb now, they don't know that there isn't an R in science. Virology to do the same trick. But these core items need to come back in our education and get the radicalism, raunch, and racism out. Up to us to know what's going on in our schools and be involved. With that, my mouth is so dry again, rather than take another sip to continue on, I'm going to end the episode at this point. Thank you. Take care. God bless. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, gang, a brief interruption in the show about Christmas giving, kind of, sort of, or to ask, are you a coffee drinker? What about other coffee drinkers you know? It's indeed Christmas giving time, Hanukkah giving time. Again, this being December now, I want to ask you, those coffee drinkers on your gift giving list, if I can get the words out correctly. What do you socks that'll get put in a drawer they forgot you gave them, a tie or a shirt that'll end up buried in the back of the closet they forgot you gave them. How about something useful like blackout coffee? Yes, I am partnering with Blackout Coffee. You can use promo code JOSEL20, Joseph for Joseph, L20 for 20% off, JOSEL20 promo code. Or better yet, I've created a shortcut, tinyurl.com/blackout coffees. And of course, Blackout Coffees all run together as one word, not three separate words. So again, tinyurl.com. I love using their shortcut services /blackout coffees. Should take you right in and automatically apply your 20% discount. So for yourself or for others, this Christmas, give Blackout Coffee something you know they're going to use, something they're going to enjoy, something that they then fondly remember you and your gift every time they sip from the Blackout Coffee cup of coffee. Thank you all. Take care. God bless. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the show, Bill Hatch of Not Quite After Midnight. First, I gotta say, Bill, I'm glad you're okay. Glad everything's okay with the family. We had a minor mishap from last week. Not a big deal. It happens at times.
Yes.
I can't say that I've never missed a show. I have. But my first obvious question then, I guess, is it William legally or is it Bill?
Legally, it's William. I am William Arthur Hatch III, named after my father and grandfather before me.
Ah, okay. Fancy Pants Esquire.
Yes, pinkies out, everyone.
Yeah. Well, frankly, I'm just gonna shoot a couple of topics, get
Okay.
your response. Like when I was on your show last, I was on with Alex from Trinidad, and we kind of got off into the weeds on the bastardization and twisting of language and or people's lack of understanding of historical context of some words. Like when we're talking the Constitution, you've got to understand, or the Bible, we even went into some twists and distortions, because you've got to understand the original Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek, Latin origins and context of the time, not what we have twisted them to become today. And one example that kind of came to me the other day, I hadn't thought of, I would have brought up during the show, because I saw the movie Napoleon the other day. So made me think Marie Antoinette. And how many people are clueless when she is quoted as "let them eat cake," and people thinking she means Sanders bump cake or Sara Lee treats or Hostess ding dongs? No, right?
Nope. No, not at all. But yeah, sorry, was just shutting off the phones. There's so many terms and turns of phrase, as it were, that just don't mean anymore what they used to mean. To go with a very contemporary term, the word gay used to mean happy. We could all be gay.
Yeah. I didn't even think to go there, but
yeah. But a certain group of people has confiscated that word from the rest of us, and used it for their own purposes. Same thing with colors.
Heaven forbid you see an old movie and they mention a fag, cigarette, not a gay person, cigarette,
a cigarette, or a bundle of sticks, as was the original meaning.
Yep. People are so dumb and uneducated and lacking any historical context of anything, as if life never existed till they got here.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. The Bible stuff comes up a lot for me because I am currently in seminary and taking a class in New Testament, and I even got reminded it can be so difficult to find original meanings of words and phrases. I got corrected by my instructor. He's like, wait a minute. That's not the original context here. And so I got marked down a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did want to ask you about that. So you gave us that background on what you're currently doing and the schooling you're attending. And I forgot where I was. Oh, I had something in my head now, but I hate when that happens. So I guess I'll have to move on and hope that comes back. But exactly. I remember now. Yay, thank you. The light bulb came on. Right. Thou shalt not murder. There is thou shalt not kill. Everybody goes around saying that's not what it was. That's not what it's intended to be, because the Bible speaks, Genesis, Leviticus, Numbers, about the biblical allowance of the death penalty. Thou who sheddest man's blood, by man's blood his shall be shed. The death penalty is proper. Killing in the right context is okay. Exodus self-defense, thief in the night, then killed by the homeowner, shall not be guilty of bloodshed.
Right.
So thou shalt not murder versus thou shalt not kill, correct?
Mhm. Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. The killing, as it is in Exodus, in the Ten Commandments, isn't any kind of killing. It is very specific to unjustifiable killing. The murder of innocents. And what all else. But yeah, but like killing in war, perfectly allowable.
That is a defense
mhm.
situation. Now, terrorism of committing terrorist acts is not biblical. That is
Right.
purposefully intending and inflicting pain, suffering, and death upon innocents, because you took the words right out of my mouth. Murder of innocents. My book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, as a Christian book, even though obviously it's not your normal, natural, fluffy, kind of traditional Christian book. That's indeed one of the subpoints. Thou shalt not murder innocents. Big, big, big difference in all that.
Yeah. Now, of course, in the Old Testament times, the killing of those who have committed murder was handled by someone referred to as the avenger of blood, which was normally the next of kin, or the assigned person from the next of kin. If the next of kin was incapable of avenging their loved one, then of course they could appoint someone. And in modern times, we've simply appointed the government to be in charge of that.
Yes,
And
exactly. We try to take the emotion of the desire for potentially for revenge out of that realm and move it to judges and juries and a separate executioner. Yeah, I don't like the idea of indeed putting that on the hands, because then you get a blood feud. The Hatfields and McCoys. Does anybody have a clue how any of all that started? But that's
yes, I do. I am actually descended from Hatfield blood.
Oh, really? Oh, is that
yes, I am.
accidental happenstance?
Yes. Yeah, it was a combination of things. Of course, the whole original thing had to do with the theft of a pig, and also a Romeo and Juliet style love triangle between the two clans. And but it was mostly about thievery was how it got started, and then from there it went on to the blood feud part of it, because people kept killing each other, and you killed my cousin, so I'm going to kill you.
Perpetual revenge cycle.
Yes.
Then as opposed to, again, us wanting modern laws based on Judeo-Christian biblical ethos of anything justifiable or not, and the separation in law of negligent homicide versus purposeful, willful, malice of forethought, premeditated murder. There are variations of murder and therefore sentencing and things of that nature. But I don't know how much of a sports fan you are. I'm not an NBA fan. So this is really a political issue I want to go down with you. But rumor has it that Sheldon Adelson is potentially looking at acquiring the Dallas Mavericks NBA team from Mark Cuban, who I'm not a fan of at all. He says some occasional good things, but he's yet another leftist loon. But it's like my gray areas episode a couple weeks back. Russell Brand Bill Maher, Roseanne Barr may be a Trump
Mm-hmm.
fan, but she's still a Hollywood liberal. There's still leftist liberals. Get better role models. They may
One of
say
us
some
froze.
occasional things that are good. That doesn't make them conservative. It doesn't make them a ChristiTutionalist, right? They're saying some things out of convenience, helping themselves. Russell Brand still clearly identifies himself as a Bernie bro. He's he's just trying to say some things to get clicks, but he's still a Bernie bro. But if Sheldon Adelson could get that team, the question then becomes, and my first question to him was, do you really want to get in that crap, that shithole of a league? But it could be an Elon move, is what I'm hoping, right? He wants to buy into the NBA and will challenge that league's wokeness and CCP ass kissing. Had you heard that? Do you have any thoughts?
No, I really hadn't heard that, but because I don't really follow the NBA too much. But the occasional blooper reel. But but
Yeah,
yeah, that would be. I mean, any time somebody can come in and hopefully start to eliminate this whole woke thing, is definitely a good thing. I certainly believe in in treating people equally. That's certainly not a problem. But yeah, this whole woke language, woke action thing. I mean, it's ruining the MCU. Uh,
yeah.
but
I was gonna ask you about the whole Santos thing, but
oh
I'm
goodness.
just gonna gloss. I talked about that last week a bit.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna gloss that over and really go to something I had in my notes where something odd, something very different, something somebody doesn't really think a lot about. We all hate, like the contract early termination fees, right? Biden
Hmm.
now, oh man of the people, wants to eliminate cable cord cutting fees, right? You have whatever satellite company or whatever cable company, and you want
Hmm.
to early terminate. Well, that's kind of a populist argument, but that is a clear, narrow focus pandering. What you need to do, if you want to do it legally and properly, in my opinion, is address the whole contract law situation. Because the point of why that's in there is when you sign up, if you want a lower fee, they cut your fee in return for a longer term commitment.
Hmm.
So it's not like this fee came out of nowhere and has no merit or value or bearing.
Right.
You agree to a contract, more or less, whether you physically sign one or not, the terms of service, you agree to it,
Hmm.
pay the damn penalty. Or, in a situation like somebody dies, a spouse should not be held to that contract. Therefore, like I said, address it as a matter of
Well,
contract law, not this
really,
pandering.
really, as far as cable television goes, really, what needs to be relooked at is this whole monopoly thing. The fact that in each area a particular cable company is king. Well, of course you're going to have terrible deals. You're going to be treated like dirt, and and taken advantage of as much as possible. What we need to do is have competition, because that's really kind of American. To
Yeah.
have competition between people, and quite frankly, every time we've created competition out of former monopolies, it's always ended up being more profitable for all the actors anyway, not just the consumers, but also for those who formerly held monopolistic holds on their industries.
Yep. Well, a lot of that, in my opinion, the free markets has indeed evolved and cleared up. Let me use my personal example. Wyandotte, Michigan, has its own cable company as part of the power and water company. So yeah, they exclude. You can't get Comcast in here. You can't get whatever in here. You can, however, have all kinds of streaming service alternatives over the internet. You also have, I have Dish Network. And I'll put my Dish Network referral code in the show notes. So please, if you're looking to cut the cord, maybe you want to go to a Dish. I've had good service from them. Great customer service, great, yes, sometimes every once in a while, a bad rainstorm or a bad snowstorm, it'll go out, but you know what? Your cable line can come down in a storm also and cut your service. So it's still, in my opinion, apples to apples. So I've been very happy with Dish Network. So there are indeed alternatives, right? If your cable company is excluding others, you could always do a streaming service or Dish or Direct TV. And if you're going satellite, I recommend Dish. Again, I'll put my referral code in the show notes.
Well, there you go. Yeah, we let's see, we have cut the cord and gone entirely streaming. We actually use T-Mobile's home internet, and which has been quite satisfactory. That's about the only option people have. Well, they've got HughesNet out here for internet, but
used to be DirecTV and HughesNet used to be, but they've separated. But yeah, DirecTV used to be the service, HughesNet the actual Dish part of that service, and now they're completely disjointed. Now, like Dish Network for a while too used to be partnered with AT&T. AT&T is now partnered with Direct. Whomever they get the best cross deals, for their bottom line and pocketbook, of course. It's certainly not looking out for us consumers.
Yeah. Nope. Always looking out for their bottom lines. That's for darn sure. But yeah, so we've gone all streaming and been pretty happy with it. Of course, I spend so much of my time working on the podcast and things anyway. I'm rarely getting to watch things anyhow. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad you said what you said there, because my show, unlike yours has been around a long time. You've built up a lot of audience. Your show goes longer. In order for me to entice people to listen a first time, I can't have very long episodes. So I kind of try to keep things fairly short, and I'm going to wrap it up. So as we do, go ahead and tell us about your show.
Well, my show that Joseph's been on a couple of times now is called Not Quite After Midnight. It's available on Facebook, YouTube, and about a half dozen or so different podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, and pretty much all the major podcasting platforms. And basically what we do is we have a little round table. And I get two guests, and so there's three of us on any given show, and we chat about whatever comes up. I have a lot of authors and coaches, and I've had some musicians on. In fact, the most recent episode I've uploaded was with a musician and music therapist from the Netherlands. And an interesting set of talents on his part. His name's Harry Kappen, and and it was a great show. He even sent me music to put into to edit into the episode, which I did. And so it's going to be a little different from most of my episodes these days. But yeah, and so we just have a chat about whatever comes around. A few weeks ago, recording ended up being about international politics and the prospect of World War III, because they were the two guests, while they weren't politicians or anything like that, they had a personal interest in those subjects. And one is an expat who lives in Portugal, and the other is an ex military intelligence officer. And so they had a lot of expertise in the field. We had a lot of fun with that, and that should be getting posted up before too much longer. But yeah,
normally I'm recorded several weeks out, but I'm anticipating the show that you'll be part of, we're recording, will be I think December 9th. So
okay, cool.
I'm not going too far ahead here. So what you just said will still be relatively recent, which is it's bad when you're quoting things and it shows up 6 weeks later and people are having to dig to find. But
yeah.
At any rate, yeah, like I always say during my show open, I talk about Graham Norton.
Okay.
Let's get on with the show, how he says it, how I do my open. But so I like your show for the way you do it. It's kind of Graham Norton couch style.
A little bit.
You have more than one person interacting together. And I think more of the late night shows that are bleeding viewers should learn from Graham Norton in that dynamic. And like James Corden stole that from Graham Norton and tried to do that, but he didn't do it very successfully. But if more of them tried it, maybe late night wouldn't be dying.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I also do a pair of weekly podcasts with my father. My father is a retired military chaplain. I say military because he served out in 3 out of the 5 branches. He served Navy, Marines, and Army.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual. But and then he also worked as a hospital chaplain for the VA, and now we do a couple of shows together each week. One is a more traditional Bible study, a deep dive into the meaning of the biblical verses, and where we go into the words to call back to the start of the show, the meaning of words. And then on Saturdays we do a topical study where we try to bring the topics of the Bible into modern life, so people can get not just an understanding, but also find themselves in it, and in the situation.
I mentioned Napoleon. I'm going to throw out another movie. I just saw it literally an hour ago before our recording. The Shift, which is a Christian religious film.
Okay, yes.
Very, very different kind of Job telling, but modern style, sci-fi kind of style. So I like Christian movies that are way out of the box, like my book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Obviously not a traditional Christian book, but a Christian book nonetheless, because the only way you're going to reach outside of preaching to the choir is to do more non-traditional things. And to close it out, since you mentioned your dad, for those looking on at J. Leonard Detroit YouTube and Rumble channels, you could see my background. Conveniently, you set that up. It says, "Merry Christmas to soldiers everywhere who can't be with their families," and a bunch of
amen to that
soldiers in the picture with Santa hats on and things of that nature for those of you who are listening via audio only. So thanks for coming on, Bill. I appreciate you coming over.
My pleasure.
Take care. God bless, brother.
You too.
Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast and Savage Unfiltered Maybe even go back a few years and dig up some old The Patriot angles. Share episodes. We need your help to grow the show. Thank you for having tuned into ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. And you can obviously learn more about the very non-traditional or fluffy style Christian book, but a Christian book nonetheless. Also, please tune in to Savage Unfiltered Podcast, of which I am a co-host, and be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. In addition to seeing the corresponding thelibertybeacon.com piece referenced in any episode of ChristiTutionalist Podcast, see to the show transcript on podcast platforms that provide access to it, like Buzzsprout at tinyurl.com/ChristiTutionalist for additional bonus material there in the transcript. Thank you. Take care. God bless.